Hashem, we're discussing the topic of cooking on Shabbos, and we're up to the concept of there's a concept called Ein Bishul Achar Bishul. Hold on, where is my AirPods? Oh, that's no good. Oh, here it is. There's a concept called Ein Bishul Achar Bishul. What does that mean? This concept means what?
Cooking after you cook it.
There's no cooking after cooking. But what does that mean? There's no cooking after cooking.
Once you cook something on Shabbos, you can reheat it. It's not
Right. That if you've already cooked it, you're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. But the thing was already cooked. Generally speaking, you're not cooking it again. So you could reheat it if you have certain things about the fire, like if the heat source is not an open flame, like it's just like a hot plate. And you could just put it on the hot plate and it's okay. So let's read this. No, right, you read 139, law 8.
139?
Page 139. Yeah.
Solid dry food that was fully cooked before Shabbat is not subject to cooking again.
Right. So if you have solid, so in order to have this concept called Ein Bishul Achar Bishul, it has to be solid, fully cooked before Shabbos, and dry, not liquid. Even if it has cooled off.
Even if it has cooled off, therefore you're permitted to soak it in Keli Rishon, provided it is not on the fire.
So you could take, let's say, a pot of hot water, and then you take the pot off of a flame. You know, it's Shabbos morning, you have the flame on all Shabbos. You take it off the flame, and you have, let's say, potatoes that were already cooked. You could put the potatoes into the hot liquid and warm them up. Go on. That's if they were cooked.
You may not soak solid dry food that was not cooked before Shabbat. So can you because some people make noodle soups on Shabbat.
Noodle soups is okay. You have to do it in the right way. You have to, we saw that you're supposed to add the water, since you typically add the water to the soup. In this case, you should add the soup to the water. Pour the soup into a cup of water, hot water. And then you should mix it up with the back of your spoon, not the front. Mix it up in an unusual manner. But that will be okay. Okay, we're on page 139, law 8.
Such as a raw kid, even if cliche, because it appears as though it is being cooked. You may, however, pour onto it from the cliche. However, a pot of soup that was cooled before Shabbat is subject to cooking again. Once it has cooled off, because the liquid is subject to repeated.
So we say that there's no cooking after cooking by solid foods, but by liquid foods, there is this problem of cooking after cooking. So liquid foods, you can't reheat. So if you have a pot of soup, let's say you have your chicken soup, you can't put it back onto a source of heat if you took it off and it's cold. You can't take it from the refrigerator and put it on the hot plate. There's some footnotes here. Footnote 18. You may put a hot chicken on a plate next to coleslaw and salad, even though the chicken is hot and the salad is raw, since you have no intention to cook and gain no benefit from cooking the salad by way of the chicken. So what?
The chicken would be so hot.
Yeah, but that's okay because you're not trying to cook the salads. Although sometimes people like to do that. They like their lettuce hot.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I know somebody who does. He's a fool, but what can you do? Yeah, footnote 19 and 140, I'll read that also. Reheating liquids and food containing liquids. The prohibition of repeated cooking applies to fluids such as water, wine, oil, fruit juices, etc. Prohibition of repeated cooking applies to liquids like water, wine, oil, fruit juices. And it applies as well to cooked food such as meat in soup or in gravy. You're forbidden to eat them again to the degree of yad soletipa once they have cooled off completely. So therefore, you can't pour cold liquid into a Keli Rishon even if it's off the fire, nor may you pour it onto it from a Keli Rishon if it was previously cooked as not cooled off. But it is warm enough to be edible. For example, chicken soup or cholent that has been in the fire sometime, you may reheat it. Okay, then we have to look how we do that. Okay.
So wait.
Yeah.
Could you only heat it to a certain temperature?
You can't heat it to the temperature of 100. If it's liquid,
You can't.
you can't heat it to 110 degrees.
Okay.
But so you can't pour a hot liquid onto some other liquid to get it hot. That would be a problem. But now you have it. You have this down.
Yeah, but what if you can't? So how can you heat it up to less than that?
So it's very hard to do. So that's why, generally speaking, we don't reheat liquids. We eat only solid foods on Shabbos. But yeah. Okay, Yossi, read law 9.
If the food or the food reshown
This is relevant, highly relevant law coming up.
is not fully cooked, you are not permitted to stir it or remove from the food with a spoon or ladle.
So let's say you have food in a soup pot, and it's not fully cooked. You can't stir it or take some of the food out with a ladle. Go on.
Or to put a lid or a cover on the vessel, whether it is on or off the fire, so long as the outside of them, because such actions help the process of cooking along, and is therefore a violation of the law. For example, you may not tend in which way, or you may not tend in any way to cholent that's not yet fully cooked.
So if the cholent is not cooked, you can't like stir the cholent to make it cook faster, because that is in helping the cooking. However,
once the food is fully cooked, you are permitted to stir.
so if the cholent is cooked, then you could stir it or remove some of the food.
Doesn't that still enhance it?
Would you be able to add?
Well, we're gonna read the whole thing and then let's read this law, then we'll come back to it. Or remove some of the food and to recover the pot, provided that you do not do so while the pot is on the fire or other heat source. So you can stir it, according to this source, as long as you do not do so while the pot is on the fire. You're permitted in any case to uncover the pot even when it's on the fire and the food is not fully cooked, as uncovering the pot does not help cooking. But before we go into this, let's look at the footnote here. Stirring and removing food from a pot on a fire. As previously stated, the Torah prohibits stirring food that is not fully cooked while it's on the fire. So if it's not fully cooked, you can't stir it. Moreover, it's rabbinically prohibited to stir food that is not fully cooked in a pot that is sufficiently hot to be yatzel edipa. So you can't stir food that is not fully cooked, and even after it's been removed from the fire. But let's just finish this. Their position among Rishonim that stirring food in a pot is a transgression of the malacha, even if the food is fully cooked. This position is endorsed l'chavchila by the Ramah. So you should refrain from stirring a pot of food that is on a fire or on a blech directly over the fire. Opinions also differ as to the permissibility of removing some food with a spoon or ladle from the pot on the fire, even when food is fully cooked. It is advisable to follow the stricter view and to refrain from removing even cooked food from a pot that's on the fire or on the blech directly over the fire. You should first remove the pot from the fire before taking it out. If that is impossible, you may remove the food from the pot without stirring. Really, when in our yeshiva, if people want to take the soup in the morning on Shabbos, the ideal thing we should do is take out the soup pot, hold it in our hands, pour it into another pot, and serve from lunch at that pot. And then, without putting the pot down, put it back in. But this will create other problems and become too complicated. Therefore, we rely on the lenient positions. Okay, now Yossi has a question.
If you're allowed to uncover the pot no matter what, that means you can put the cover back on. Because even if it's on the fire and it's raw, that wouldn't enhance the cooking. If you put it back on, because then it gets hotter. To keep the heat trapped in.
That's an excellent question. So Yossi's asking, can you recover the soup pot? So they don't directly discuss that here. But I always assume that you're allowed to. But let me see what our AI says here. I always assume that you're allowed to. But you're saying if it's not fully cooked.
Yeah. I mean, even if it is fully cooked, it's still enhances now.
If it's fully cooked, it's not a problem. You're not enhancing it. It's fully cooked.
You're just burning.
That's enhancing.
No way.
Back on the pot. that is on the fire when the food is not fully cooked on Shabbos. Cite sources. Let's see what they say here. We ask them to give me the sources on this topic. Putting a soup pot cover back on a pot that is on the fire when the food is not fully cooked. Placing a cover back onto a pot that is sitting on an active flame on Shabbat when the food is not fully cooked is a serious halachic issue. So when a lid is placed on the pot, it traps the steam and concentrates the heat. This dramatically accelerates the cooking process. In halachic terms, doing this to uncooked food is classified as an act of cooking because it directly facilitates and hastens the completion of food.
So once you uncover it, you can't put it back on.
Presumably,
It's not for the.
you definitely can't put it on, but the question is, if you take it off, can you put it back on? That's what we're asking. Now, well, that's what we're asking. What if
You can never.
well, here, for a lid to be legally returned to a pot on Shabbos, the following criteria must be met. The food must be fully cooked. So, fine. So if it's fully cooked and the pot is off the fire, if you must cover a pot containing food that is not fully cooked, you may only do so if you completely remove the pot, ensuring it will not continue to cook further.
What happens if you remove it, it'll cool down and put it down.
No, that you can't do. You can't put it back on the fire once it's cool. So Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah explicitly notes that covering an uncooked pot on the fire violates the biblical prohibition of bishul by trapping the steam and speeding up the cooking process. Shmir Shabbos Geochata confirms that one may not place a lid onto a pot unless the food is 100% fully cooked. But he says, if it's cooked, you can put it on. Yeah, see, if it's cooked, you can put it on. That's the question. Okay, so we had a lot of interesting discussion.
But like the thing is with like the definition of if it's cooked, it's like different for everyone. So it's like
No, so they have like a standard, like as long as basically edible in that status by other people. But most people would eat it then, even if it's a little undercooked.
Right.
Okay, so we had a very good discussion here, and now we're.
people know these rules.
Everyone knows them. We just have to keep reviewing them because they're so complicated. Yeah, you have to know these rules. But you are correct that most of these rules people intuitively learn when they're growing up and they watch their mother and their father and their people in their house how they cook, and that they intuitively understand. Okay.